So anxious resistant. Now remember there were 4 categories, right? Mm-hmm. So anxious resistant kids were on the opposite end of the spectrum. They didn't have a lot of self-confidence. They really clung to their caregivers, whether it's parents. When I say caregivers, I mean parents, grandparents, just old people in their lives who were, really part of that initial bonding experience. For these kids, they tended to have really exaggerated emotional reactions to stuff, but they also kept the distance from their peers. How did this translate into adulthood? That translated into anxious, preoccupied adults. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of formed less secure bonds with partners and feel really desperate for love and affection.
I haven't found that word yet. This week, in their meeting with us, we were allowed to take a good look at ourselves. We were reminded that we are made in the image and the likeness of God. And if that is true, there's some things we have to change that we've been thinking all along. We were given a whole new set of lenses with which to see the Word of God when we read it with a desire to understand what that love letter is all about. We were allowed to put ourselves, not talk about somebody else, like the sermon wasn't for this one or that one, but it was for us. We have gained such growth this week. I have gained such growth this week. My eyes have been opened. And God also used the tailors to help me to see the things that have been happening in my life were His call on my life to be a better person, to be more caring, more loving, more compassionate. Have you written a letter to yourself yet? We did that this week. We wrote a love letter to ourselves. And we weren't afraid to call ourselves beautiful because we are made in the image and the likeness of God. Amen. I pray that everyone here had an opportunity at least one night to have joined with the Taylors to begin that new journey. You ever been in a race and you're running and you see the end inside? We're at that place. The end is inside. But there's some things we need to correct. There's some erroneous information we've carried for a while, and so much so it has been inculcated in our spirits. But we saw this week it's okay to let go of that. And it is now time for us to see what God intends for us. What we need to chase after is love. Not houses, not cars, not clothes, not food. God said in Matthew 6:33, He'll provide all of that. So this week, our hearts have been opened to receive God as He desired to be received by us. And we want to say thank you to the Taylors for this.
Hey, Pastor, I finished the book last night. Oh my goodness. Man, I'm going to have my niece read it some more today. But I couldn't put it down. What a powerful read. Your daughter did a phenomenal job in that writing. That was so good. Oh, the story was so, I could put myself in it in so many different ways, and wow, it was well written. I mean, I could not put it down. I was up with that book till midnight last night. I was like, whoa, I'm not putting it down. I was like, I wanted more. And I really love how she incorporates her spiritual life and the choices that she make.
Her Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry is an 8-week Zoom seminar in which Kamala and Winston help women to start living their best life by rediscovering the image of God in their life. Kamala, a licensed marriage and family therapist, joins her husband of 16 years, an ordained pastor, to marry the clinical and the spiritual. You will begin living your best life filled with love, joy, and peace. Register at kwministries.net for this life-changing seminar.
Good evening, and welcome back to another Monday Night Live with KW Ministries. It's our pleasure to be here yet again. So, as you've been with us from week to week, you know that we're going to get into a really robust discussion a little bit later on. But for right now, I kind of want for Winston Taylor, tell us about KW Ministries.
Good night, Elder Glenn. So happy that you could join us tonight, and some of you have joined us early. We're grateful that you're here. KW Ministries. Hey, Stacy. Hey, Stacy. Oh, we're in for it tonight. KW Ministries, our philosophy, our catchphrase, whatever you want to call it, reaching people with a desperate cry. Our mission, reaching people with a desperate cry. This is a ministry born out of our own desperate cry, our own challenges, our own dark days. And I think we're going to talk about some of that tonight, our own dark days. And we said, well, if we have dark days, and I pastored for 15 years in a traditional pulpit, and we knew people had challenges, but then being face to face with our own dark days, we said, all right, let's put together something in writing. Let's put together something through this means where we can reach other people who have desperate cries like we do. Yeah. And so with the skills of one Miss Anna K. Fagan and all of that stuff, we have put together this Monday night with KW.
Awesome. So guys, if you've been with us for a while, you know that one of the things that we also offer through KW Ministries is the opportunity to really be ministered to through our many devotional series.
Yes. I actually want to give away one of those tonight.
Which one are you giving away tonight?
Tonight, I want to give away, I think this is our shortest little devotional.
I think so.
A journey through spiritual warfare. And a journey through spiritual warfare, Kamala, is really a devotional on Ephesians chapter 6, putting on the whole armor of God. And let me just read something from here real quick, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
All right. Ephesians 6, verse 13. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the evil day comes, you will be able to stand, and having done everything, to stand. I'm going to jump down to the second paragraph. Paul says, if we're going to engage Satan, if we're going to enter into and win spiritual battles, if we're going to stop being scared and stop running with anxiety and hiding in depression, and if we're going to take the battle to the devil, we're going to have to get dressed in every single thing God has. We can't pick and choose. We can't decide that today we'll wear this piece of armor and tomorrow we'll wear that piece. Paul says we should put on everything, take on everything, put on the full armor of God, wear all of it. And that's what this whole little book devotional is about. And one of the most amazing things for me is the cover of it, is the cover of it. And because there's a secret to the cover of it. If you look down here, you see this dark, scary figure. But that's all it is. It's a figure. It's not real. It's not real. Where we actually up here have the Lion of the tribe of Judah who has our back. So this is what we would like to give away tonight. A journey through spiritual warfare.
Now, I think it's important as you're talking about giveaways that, yes, tonight, if you stay on with us, you comment, share.
You got to talk to us. You have to talk to us. You have
the opportunity to get this devotional, but if you don't win it tonight.
Oh, yes.
Please go to our website.
This is my salesperson right here. Yes. You know, yes, for example, Elder Glenn just said, I need that book. So, Elder Glenn, let's tell you exactly how to get it. And okay, let's show Elder Glenn exactly how to get that book. Head over right now to www.kwministries.com. ministry.net/shop.
Yes.
And it will be, you have to, if you're on your phone, you're gonna have to scroll all the way down. But this book is right there. Good job,
Yes,
Kamala.
absolutely. So yes, our ministry was born out of a desperate cry. Our ministry was born out of a desire as we worked through our own healing process. Not to say we're done yet. It's a journey.
A journey.
We talk about
A journey.
As we work through our own, we also recognize that other people might want to share their own journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And so this medium has afforded us the opportunity to have some really great conversations with different individuals who have gone through their own desperate cries, their own challenging situations, and they've shared with us how they're doing, what they're doing, what's happening along their journey of healing.
I'm really excited about Monday night's guest. Not tonight, but next Monday night.
You're not excited about tonight's guest?
I am excited about I'm very excited about tonight's guest, but I'm really, really excited about Monday night's guest because Monday night's guest is going to be somebody that has been participating with us for weeks now. And she has a unique story. And what I love about Stacy being our guest on next Monday, next week, is that Stacy is not waiting till the journey is finished to come chat with us.
Yes.
She's actually going to come and talk with us as the second phase of the journey begins.
Yes.
And so I'm really, really excited and looking forward to a really healing opportunity for next week. So if you want to experience some real healing, some real life transformative experience, join us next week Monday night when we have our sister Stacy on with us. Tonight our guest, well, let's we'll talk about some more stuff later. Okay, tonight our guest is, who's your guest tonight?
My guest is, I guess, myself.
Okay, I hope you're gonna say your guest is me and then my guest is you. But okay, no problem. Yes, so Kamala is our guest tonight. We want to have a conversation about suicide, a journey through suicide, the loved ones. And it's a really intimate conversation, a really close conversation to us. But we believe that we should have a conversation about it with the hope that we will minister to someone and bring healing to them. So let's take a quick break and we'll come right back. Please, if you know anyone who has had this journey where they've lost someone to suicide, or someone who recently called you and said to you, hey, I am contemplating suicide, or anything like that, or if you yourself have contemplated, stay tuned, grab someone, tell them how to get on, and please talk with us so we can communicate with each other. And remember, that's how you get into the runnings to win this book, Journey Through Spiritual Warfare, from our series, Not by Might Nor by Power, Morning Manna. So that's how you get this book. If you have to talk with us, communicate with us, and AK is going to put you in a and last week you didn't run the wheel live. Could you run it live this week, please? And let's see the participants who win. And as Kamala said, if you don't win it, you know how to get it. Yes. Head over to kwministries.net. We'll be right back. We're back, and tonight we're just having a conversation amongst ourselves. We're so happy that Sister Rosabelle Martin joined us. Sister Martin, you are so wise, and I'm praying and hoping that you will join in the conversation tonight. All right. So remember, everybody, it's a conversation. It's a conversation. So I'm trying to see the best place to start this. You lost your brother.
Yes.
Tell us about your brother.
You know, it's funny that you asked that question because I was thinking about, gosh, where to even start here. And so, precursor to telling you about my brother. So, I think it's important for anybody listening to hear. So, losing somebody, whether it's through suicide, whether it's through natural causes, whatever the case might be, one of the things that you're not prepared for is the fact that the loss is not just the loss of the person, but it's the loss of the life you envisioned with the person in it.
And yes, and yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we're gonna do that, but
Yes.
that's jumping
No.
straight. We're gonna do that.
I wasn't trying to jump ahead.
Okay, here's where I would like you to start. I would like for you to start with this. Tell us all the story.
Yeah.
Tell us all the story that you were told about when you got home.
Yes.
When
Well,
they
you knew
brought
I was
you
going to
home.
start.
Oh, that's what-
Yeah. 'Cause I made the statement to say this. I made a statement because I wanted to paint the picture
Right.
that this is a lifetime.
Right.
So the story of when my brother and I first met. So now, obviously, I don't remember this. I remember this because of the stories that were told to me. So my mom and dad told me the story of when I first came home from the hospital as a baby. My brother, Sean, who would have been around 3 years, probably about 10 months old at the time, took one look in this crib of his newly arrived sister and said the following words: "I don't want a black baby in this house." Now hold on, before you go, that's kind of racist for a 3.5-year-old. So one of the things to keep in mind, this is Jamaica, this is 1980, and Jamaica was very colorist, right? So light-skinned people were, kind of looked upon as, better, prettier, whatever the case might be. Anyway, to a 3.5-year-old, obviously he's not thinking about all of those things, but that was the culture in which he was.
Right.
And so here I come, the first dark-skinned kid in the family.
Right.
And so he's looking at me like, I imagine, I don't know this guy. He's looking at me like, what's this?
I wonder if Brother Glenn remembers that story. He just said he's here. So this is gonna be good. Out of that, what kind of relationship did you two have?
Okay. So
after he meets this baby
Yep.
that he so eloquently describes, what was the relationship?
So funnily enough, and I see Daddy says I do remember. So funnily enough, my very next memory of us, and forgive me guys, I don't have the greatest memory, but the things that I do remember about my brother are pretty kind of profound, funny. They're a blend of all kinds of things. So my very first memory after that first one is,
well, you don't have that first memory.
I know, right? The story of that.
Right.
But my very first memory with him, we couldn't have been, gosh, 5 or 6 maybe, or I would have been around 5 or 6. We used to play in the backyard under the shelter of the balcony. We used to play Indians and cowboys and Indians. And we had, I don't know if anybody, this is gonna date us. We had those little figurines, those little plastic toy figurines,
I've been trying to
the
find
cowboys and the Indians. And we would play there in the dirt like for hours upon hours.
Yeah.
Later on, and this was still in that same house, I remember that it was myself, his best friend, and
Neil.
him. Oh gosh, what was his name? Brian.
Okay.
Yeah. the three of us were hanging out. Now, where the rest of the family or siblings were, who knows? But we were hanging out. And we were in the neighbor's yard, which is not uncommon, right? when you're that age. Yes, Brian,
Terrence here.
So we were in the neighbor's yard, just hanging out and playing, etc., etc. So lo and behold, we start to hear barking. So the neighbors have dogs that I don't know where they were before, but suddenly they were coming into the front of the yard where we were and starting to bark and chase us.
Yeah.
So it's the three of us in the yard. And so, we're hightailing it out of there. So I'm running and running and running and running. I get to the fence that's in between that yard and our yard. And I turn around. There is no Sean. There is no Brian. I am on my own. All I see is these dogs bearing down on me. So I leap through the fence and make it to safety. So later on, not too long after that, after dogs went about their business wherever they went, here come Sean and Brian. Where were you guys? Apparently they had hightailed it up a tree. Didn't even bother to let me know that's what we were doing. And when I think of that memory, it's really one of the earmarks of the kind of relationship that me and my brother had. Like, I was his little sister, almost 4 years younger than him. There was no reason for a little boy to want to have his younger sister hanging out with him and his friend. But nonetheless, that's what we did.
All right, there's one more story I want to ask you about so I can tell on you. Terrence, if you remember Snowflake.
Don't do that to me, Terrence.
All right, well, there's one more story that I want to, so I can tell Brother Glenn on you. So tell us the stories, or just a summary of the stories of what you all used to do on Brother Glenn's porch with reggae music. On the
Daddy,
elders' porch.
Daddy, I'm
with
sure
reggae
that
music.
you have forgiven this many years ago.
Oh, so he knows.
Pretty certain. I don't know that we could have admitted. So Daddy used to play music for church. So he had all of the big speaker systems, all of the equipment that you would need to run a really robust service. And so we used to, this was when the first stories were when we used to live in Manchester in Jamaica. This part of the story is when we moved to Spanish Town. Now, mind you, before I tell you how we use the sound system, what you need to know is that we lived in between the conference office.
That's the church's headquarters.
The church's headquarters.
Where your dad
in
worked.
Central Jamaica, where Daddy was the credit union manager and was literally next door. And then on the other side of us was our Seventh-day Adventist Prep High School. We're in the middle, and we are in the midweek blasting reggae music. When I say at full capacity,
Stacy is dying.
When I say full capacity, did I ever tell you this part? One day, this is Jamaica. So for every church there's a bar. There was a bar on the other side.
Y'all were competing.
Somebody came from the bar to say that we were competing. Sorry, Daddy. That's what we did. That's what happened.
Darren said that every Saturday night was the place to be at your house.
Yes. There's this other story that Sean and I, let's see. We laughed together about it, but it was mostly me laughing at him about it. Daddy said, wow. Sorry, Pops. Confession is good for the soul. So this is actually my favorite story.
Yes.
So one of the things about growing up in Manchester with my parents as they were, and as they kind of still are. So one of the big things was, you must speak properly. If you're not Jamaican, what you need to know right now is that Jamaica has a dialect, patois. But in our house, growing up as children, Uncle Glenn was busy playing dominoes. Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Not sure how you didn't hear it, Stacey. So growing up in Manchester, growing up with my parents, The comments are coming in. That's what happens when I was at work. We confess that. We confess. But so growing up the way we were, one of the things that was priority as kids is you must speak properly.
Right.
Not because there was anything wrong with patois, but because our parents felt like it was important for us to instill that foundation of language.
Right.
So growing up in Manchester, being there, we made the transition to Spanish Town. And at that time, Karen and Sean were in high school. I would be in prep school. And we really started to get more exposed to patois.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently there was this girl at school that my brother was really into.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, by that time, our relationship had continued to be what it was. We were really close. We talk about just about anything. So I knew about this girl that he was, really getting into and, wanted to talk to, but he wasn't sure what he wanted to say anyway. So I knew about this story. Mm-hmm. The part where it gets funny is years down the line. So years down the line, I find one of his old journals. So he used to write.
Mm-hmm.
And he had written about this girl that he was really interested in. And so this is how he said it. He said, there's this girl that I'm really interested in. Tomorrow, I would like to go and talk to her. Or as they say, and then he put in quotation marks, go check for her. So let me give you some context why this is so funny. So this is years later. Of course, we're very much skilled experts in patois by now. And so to look back at a time before patois was the thing, to hear him put it in quotation marks as if it was a different language altogether.
As they would say.
The commoners would say, go check for her. So I found that journal and I shared that with him and we laughed and laughed and laughed. And I tell you, we laughed. And then sporadically, every now and then, up until college days, guys, I would every now and then just said to him, or as they say, and it would start a whole ton of laughter again. And Stacey is saying Sean was definitely one of a kind. And that's absolutely true. This is kind of just, that was the experience that we had with him.
How much did you love your brother?
Oh gosh, that's hard to put into words. And it's not from the standpoint of, I didn't like my other siblings, right? Mm-hmm. But Sean was my only brother. Mm-hmm. And as a youngest sibling, to have a brother that valued you, mm-hmm. I knew, let me not say you knew, I knew for sure that my brother would be there for me, mm-hmm. no matter what. Mm-hmm. No matter what the circumstances was, mm-hmm. no matter where he was, no matter if he had it, didn't have it, I knew there was no question. There was nothing I couldn't talk to him about, mm-hmm. nothing that I couldn't say, mm-hmm. nothing that felt like judgment that came from him. Even if you were wrong, mm-hmm. he still opened up that space to where you felt really comfortable around him. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. What happened to Sean?
So in 2012, this is the hard part, guys. In 2012, Sean committed suicide. And I say that with a period there, because that's how it feels. It's like, even sitting here in this moment, this is 2012, this is now 2022. Mm-hmm. Even sitting here in this moment, it's still like, really? Mm-hmm. It's still kind of unbelievable.
Now, earlier, Stacey said, way earlier, she said that was a profound
statement.
She said that was a profound statement, Marla. And what it was that you said was that when you lose a loved one, mm-hmm. it reshapes mm-hmm. the future of your life. Mm-hmm. what did you envision that life would be like with your brother? For example, I've heard you on many occasions, especially in around October, say, man, how I would love to share X with Sean. What did you explore that some more of how when you talk, I'm asking you, please, if you could speak to someone who is thinking about committing suicide so that they can understand how valuable they are to the lives of the people that they're with.
I'll start with this because it's always the first thing that comes to mind. It is still unbelievable to me that I have children who will never know my brother.
Mm-hmm.
I think about how Ariana, who would have been 4 when he died, will still remember that Uncle Sean was the original tickle monster. Will still say, I remember watching Rio with Uncle Sean. And even the other day, I was just looking at Gabby and Zach. I think it was something that Ariana said. She mentioned something about Sean. And it hit me again like, wow, Gabby doesn't even know that mom had this kind of relationship with her brother. When I graduated with my master's, I thought about my brother, like how proud he would have been. I'm doing my doctoral program now, and I can hear him saying, "Quantru, sistrin." Like I can still hear the things that he would say, and I know that these things would be things that he would have been so proud of.
Do you believe that as you do these things, hi Sarah, how are you? Do you believe that as you do these monumentus, as you climb these mountains, as you go through life, do you believe that it would be a little bit easier if Sean was here for you to talk with?
I don't know. That's a hard question because it's hard to go back and say, well, what would have been different if Sean was here now? I just know that he's not here. And I know that it would be nice that he was here. But I imagine if I have to imagine that our relationship would have continued the way that it was. And that we would have been able to talk not just about my stuff, but his stuff, and laugh together and visit together. And I would have envisioned him being the uncle that would have come around, so
the losing him, you're not the only person that lost him. Zach has lost him. Gabby has lost him. Ari has lost him.
And not just us. I think, so one of the things with Sean is that, I think Stacey said it may not have been
different, but he would have been on the journey with us throughout our lives.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming as he would be on that journey with you. And I'm going back to the theme earlier. And I have, of course, I'm going back to the theme earlier of now not having that complete, having to reshuffle life without him. So that person that's out there that's thinking about committing suicide, how valuable are they to the people around them?
There's not a way to quantify the value that you have to the people in your lives. Even if you haven't talked in a minute, even if even if your relationship isn't what it once was, there's no replacement for you in this world. There's nobody else that's going to come along where your family is going to say, oh, okay, I feel really comfortable with this person playing the role of my family member. There will be nobody else like you. For me, going along this journey, I have encountered people that remind me of my brother. I have been in situations where I would have said, oh man, I could see how Sean would react to this. But it's not him. He's not there. So they're just reminders. Taryn sent us a picture of something.
And Taryn is your sister.
Yes. That she saw. She was walking through a school. She was thinking about doing some studies there. And there was a plaque on the wall that said it was some kind of honorary to a Sean Glenn. We all knew it wasn't him, but to see his name displayed like that, it was like, oh. There's not a lot of words to put to it. I went to pastry chef school. Yes, Taryn. I went to when we went to Jamaica.
No, don't tell that story.
Yet?
No, because I want to use it as our last story. Stacy said no one at all, and I want for you to hear this. If you are someone that's contemplating suicide, or if you know someone that's contemplating suicide, would you tell this to them? Stacy says no one at all can ever replace that loved one. When your loved one loses you, it's a permanent hole in their life. Let's take a quick break and come right back.
We're ready for wash and go with Beardtopia.
Shampoo.
That's right. This is step 1. We're doing our shampoo.
Mommy. Happy, happy, happy. Happy, happy, happy.
We just did our Beardtopia shampoo.
Almost there. Happy, happy, happy. Dude! Conditioner! Yay! Conditioner. I like that.
The conditioner is in M's here, and as you can see, it's super soft and nice. Ooh, look at these curls.
And we put our conditioner in our Beardtopia.
We're all done with the shampoo and conditioner.
And so we're done.
All right, so welcome back. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We're talking about a journey through suicide, the loved ones, in which and we're having a conversation amongst ourselves, Kamala and I, and our family members, Stacy and Dad and Taryn, talking about Kamala's own loss in losing her brother. And one of the things that Kamala just came straight out the gate with is this idea that when you lose a loved one, it changes the trajectory, it changes the possibilities. Stacy then added he would have been on the journey. So now you are on this journey of life, but without that loved one. Elder Glenn says, I'm still hurting from the loss of my son. That's the worst thing for any parent to have to deal with. Kamala, you and I were talking earlier when I asked if we could have this conversation. And one of the things that we talked about was how should we treat each other? You said just now, even if you haven't talked in a while, even if you're still valuable, and Stacey made it clear that there's no replacing. How then, what responsibility do we have to each other?
So when we were in the early days of this loss, you'll remember this. One of the things that we said to each other in the family, which on my end of things is still something I struggle with, but one of the things that we said in the family was that let this, and we didn't say it like this, I'm saying it like this, but let this be the thing that reminds us not to take for granted the time that we have with each other. And let's look for opportunities to connect. And so that, because loss, death, it eventually comes to all of us. And so using the time that we have to really value the people that are with us. You always say this, give people their roses while they're alive. So finding ways to be really intentional about that. And you heard me say this is still something that I struggle with. And it's not because of a lack of value. It's personality.
What do you say to somebody tonight who's beefing with their family member?
Stop. Life is too short. Honestly, life is too short. The regret that you experience from that time lost over things that ultimately may not have made a big difference, it's not worth it.
But what if you are right and the person is wrong?
That will happen too. That will happen too. I think it's important to be really intentional about what's worth more.
And Stacey just said living life intentionally. Say something more about that. So the family member is beefing. You said it's more important to think what's worth more, me being right or me losing this person at some point with all that lost time.
So I'm going to use kind of my experience, not from this experience, but my experience as a therapist.
Good job.
I have heard countless stories of people who have lost relationships with people in their lives. They've burned their bridges through all kinds of different things. And I have not heard a single person yet, and I've been doing this, 6 years? I have not heard a single person yet say, I wouldn't change a thing about this. Every single person who expresses that they don't have a relationship with family expresses regret, regardless of whether they were right, wrong, or in between. And that's because we inherently want to connect with people, especially the people that we've enjoyed good relationship with to begin with.
So, Kamala, in having this discussion, because somebody is saying, yes, I hear you, but you don't understand. It's not healthy to have a relationship with this family member. Where does boundaries come in? Where I can still have a relationship with my family, but still have healthy boundaries?
Yeah, you have to balance that out. In terms of, Cheryl says, I've chosen kindness over being right when it comes to family beef.
I have chosen kindness over being right. I have chosen kindness over being right. I like that.
I like that too. I was going to say, as it relates to boundaries, though, so there may be that occasion in your life or a person in your life that, for safety's sake, we cannot have an up close and personal relationship. One, okay, I've reconciled that within myself. I can't have an up and close personal relationship with you, but I can say, here is how I'm going to set the parameters for this. So maybe our relationship means that in order for us to get along, to be kind, we have to be geographically separated. So sometimes we need to not live in the same state, in the same house, in the same. sometimes that's the thing that I have to do. And I've seen that where that has actually helped people in relationships.
But I can write you a letter for your birthday.
You can write me a letter for my
Send you a
birthday.
card.
I can have even the occasional phone call with you, whatever the case might be. And yes, there are some instances where, because of the nature of what has happened in the relationship, maybe
It has to be a clean cut.
maybe it has to be clean in the sense that I know that I can't healthily have a relationship here, but it doesn't stop me from still
Wishing
caring
you-
about the
yes,
person,
right.
wishing you well,
Praying
praying
for
for you. It doesn't stop me from doing any of those things. So there's varying degrees of what this can look like, but it's important to start with how healthy is it and what do I need for this to be healthy, or is this a case where it has to be a complete break?
So here's the conversation we've been having. Suicide, the loved ones. We've spent a lot of time talking about, and we purposely spent a lot of time talking about the fun memories, the laughter, because we wanted for people to get a picture of what life is like with people in your life. But then we talked about the idea of being left on that journey. How, and I think Stacey said it best, how that person is not on the journey of life. You talked about graduation, you talked about your doctoral program, talking about Zach and Gabby, this journey. We've talked about the idea that while we're alive, we need to care for each other. We need to see the signs and genuinely have an interest in each other. And I love how you pivoted from a therapist perspective, because that's how we agreed that we would end this discussion tonight. And so that's what I would like to start talking to you about now. What's going on in the mind of someone that wants to commit suicide?
There are no options. Emotionally, it seems as if there's no other way through. Now, is that the only reason? I would not say that.
Taryn says they're tired.
They're tired emotionally, physically, mentally, all of that. But I will not say that those are the only reasons.
Right.
So I say those based on conversations that I've had with people who have been to that place and have come back. And these are the things that they talk about. I felt like
your mom said hopeless.
Yes, hopeless. Absolutely. There are many things. For some people, it's been, I was struggling with my own mental health challenges, which created this scenario where not only was I feeling emotionally spent, but also I started being really impulsive. And so that's a lot of times what has gone hand in hand, that the impulsivity for some people, not for everybody, like I said.
So when you say impulsivity, you're saying that if that person could have just made it through that night, they probably would not have done that.
No, I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what some of the things that a therapist, provider, a psychiatrist would say to somebody who's in that crisis moment. Of course, there are lots of other things that would be said, but it's one of the things that would be said. How can we get through this moment? Because suicide ultimately becomes a permanent answer to a temporary problem. And I'm not minimizing what people are going through, because that experience when you're in that moment is very real. It's very raw. It feels very urgent. It does feel like the depths of despair.
Tired, Taryn says,
Yeah.
hopeless.
But what I would say to somebody is, if you've had those thoughts, think about how that has occurred for you over time. It's come and gone, or it's felt really, really strong in one moment and not so strong in the next moment.
But isn't that because Taryn just said it does not feel in that moment when
Right.
it's happening, it does not feel temporary. And so isn't that where we come in, where it's important that there, when I say we, other people, otherness, where somebody can be there to talk somebody down, somebody can be there to
we shy away from talking to people who are struggling with suicidal thoughts when we know, because I think there's a part of us that's afraid that if we talk about it too much, it's going to make the person do it more. And the opposite is actually true. The more we create spaces for people, the more we let people know that, I think Stacey was the one that said this on a previous night, that it was in response to something else, but it's okay for us to not be okay.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I think we struggle with is this idea that we have to put on this persona that everything is okay all the time.
Right.
And we're not all.
And Taryn just highlighted again something we've been saying weeks over weeks, the cultural, where people don't want to have the conversation.
Right.
All right. So how somebody's having this thought. We want to normalize the idea that it's okay not to be okay, right? How does someone begin to change that pattern? No one just gets up and say, I'm gonna kill myself and go do it, right? It has to be planned. It has to be before I ask that, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask you this first. Somebody's just saying that they want to kill themselves for attention.
Don't ever say that to somebody. Don't ever say that to anybody.
Sure.
It's not about attention. It's never about attention. It can be about, I feel like there's no way out. It's a cry for help, but not a cry to just pay attention to me. If
not attention is the
if
help.
I break my leg and I call out to you, help, I can't go anywhere because my leg is broken. You're not going to say, shake it off, you'll be all right, shake that. No, you're not going to say that. And so if somebody is articulating, I feel broken, then let's take the same
urgency
to respond to that. Now, how I respond to that might look like, I can just sit with you. We don't have to talk about anything, but know that I'm here for you. Let's say that's one thing. How can we talk and open up that space? It's not about providing opinion, judgment, or anything. It's just allowing somebody to say, here's what's going on with me. And just being empathetic. A lot of times we are sympathetic and it comes off of, I feel sorry for you. And what we need is empathy. I may not be able to relate to you specifically, but I can be here with you in this moment as you're going through this. If you're scared to be that person, to sit with somebody and have these kind of conversations, it's also okay to say, hey, I know this great crisis hotline.
Right.
We're going to put one on the screen in just a moment. But it's okay to utilize these resources that are here because there are many and varied. Right there at the bottom, you'll see 800-273-8255, or you can just text SAVE to 741-741.
That's going to keep going for a while.
It's going to keep going.
Taryn says, sometimes it feels like the person you're talking to because you need help is only hearing. They're not listening. And if you're that close to the edge, you can tell when that person doesn't really care.
And that's exactly why we talk about empathy.
Right. Here, come on. How do we be less self-absorbed? Because I think Taryn is correct that there are people that it's not that we don't care. We all have problems. We all have issues. How do we allow ourselves to feel? How do we develop that empathy?
We learn to pause
Mhm.
all of the noise that's going on with us and just sit with somebody. See how we're sitting together
Mhm.
and we're looking at each other?
Mhm.
You know that I'm listening to you.
Mhm.
You know that I'm understanding what you're saying and you know that, and I know that you're understanding what I'm saying because you're asking questions, you're showing interest. Really, that's as simple as it is to show interest. Many times I can't tell you. It was just probably 2 weeks ago I was talking to somebody and they were like, I know when somebody's not really listening to me because I was trying to tell somebody something that was really important to me. And they were off on their phone. They were kind of just saying, And so we know what it feels like to be listened to. So we know what to do when
So
we
that
are
people
listening
feel
to
as though they're being listened to.
Right.
Sister Glenn said, we really have to make ourselves available. Taryn says, allow ourselves to let go and be there in that moment for the
Yes.
person. And again, this is from the perspective that we want for people to know that they're valued. This is from the perspective that we want for people to know that they're valued. And what we're saying here tonight is if you're in the situation and you don't believe other people value, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline has set aside people there to value. Because here's what I was saying again, you just have to get through the moment. I remember when I was in high school, I was at Pine Forge and I was tired. I was hopeless. I was there was no other options. There was no, and I was prepared to take my own life. I was prepared to end it. And you talked about being impulsive in that moment. That there, and I struggled with being impulsive, but there's nothing else to do. There's no way out. There's nothing else. But I made it through that night, and by morning, things looked different.
Yes. Just being able to get through that moment, and you can do it in all kinds of different ways, by talking to people, by calling a crisis hotline, by removing things from your environment that you could hurt yourself with if given the opportunity. And it really is just important to share with others how you're feeling, so that even if, let's say, I can't remove the stuff that need to be removed to keep me safe, somebody else can.
And Kamala, can we agree and can we get everybody to understand that Nikisha said just giving a listening ear is a start. Genuine and active listening is a great start. We agree with you 100%,
Yes.
Nikisha. Can we agree and get everybody to understand that crazy is knowing something is going on and keeping it to myself? Can we, if talking to a therapist is not crazy, being self-aware is not crazy. Crazy is knowing something is happening. And
I would encourage us to remove crazy from our vocabulary.
Period. Yeah.
Because crazy has stood in the way of a lot of better decisions around mental health.
Yeah.
Stacey just said we don't like to share because we don't want others judging us, and that's what
Right.
crazy is.
Right.
We think about our context growing up. Crazy for us meant that man that was living on the street, that was clothes torn up, that was foaming at the mouth, that would chase people in the street. That's a vision that we have in our heads.
Right.
And so when we start to recognize that, man, there's some things going on with me emotionally, mentally, that are not okay right now, we immediately, and I'm not saying we all get that same image, but we immediately get an image of here is how I'm going to be perceived if I admit these things. And the fact is, there are billions of us on this planet. There are billions of people who have been in this very same place. We're not alone.
And let me say this real quick before I say this. Lorna Foster says there is such a stigma attached to mental health that people are afraid. Exactly.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we're saying, to ask for help. Marla, not just asking for help, not just being there, not just one of the things we have to learn to do that needs to be normalized is valuing people, is understanding people's value just based on the fact that they're people. Because I believe where we are today, what Aunt Lorna just said, there is such a stigma attached to mental health because of how we used to judge those people on the road. That's why we're where we are today.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Those people used to call the madman because, and in a lot of cases, they were homeless. In a lot of cases, they had chemical imbalances, and the way we judge them has come back now to bite us. Where we judge ourselves, and we're silent because we don't want to look like the people we talked about. And so it's imperative for us that we learn to just value people. You're human, and that automatically gives you value. Not how much money you have, not how you look, not where you're from. You're human, and that gives you value. You were created by God.
If every single one of us could do that, it would mean such a big change, because individually we look and we judge ourselves based on that picture, but also societally, culturally, we look at that same picture as well. And so if somebody has a mental breakdown at work, they're looked upon as, what's going on with this person? Nobody's judging you. If you have a medical procedure that needs to be done, you simply get time off, right?
That's right.
But we judge each other societally and culturally as well. But it takes the actions of us as individuals, the mindset of us as individuals, to make those bigger changes.
So what we'd like to, Christine says, value people. What we'd like to ask you to do tonight, in order to value people, you can't value people if you have not valued yourself. And well, here's what Christine said: treat others how you would love to be treated. So let's start by practicing on ourselves. Let's start by treating ourselves with value. Let's start by taking care of ourselves. Let's start by being kind to ourselves, forgiving ourselves, loving ourselves. Let's start there. Acknowledging that your mental health is in danger is also the first step in seeking help. But that first step is always the hardest. Yes, Taryn. And one of the things I love about Ariana, our oldest daughter, she's always talking about her mental health. She's always, this is something I love about that child. She's always talking about her mental health. I'm not doing well today. She's always
very open
and self-aware to where she is and how she's feeling. Being homeless is not necessarily a mental issue.
Absolutely.
Of course not. Well, I won't say that, but of course not. Of course not. Kamala, when you and I were in Jamaica, and we were at Caribbean session, and it was held at Northern Caribbean University. And you told me you'd be right back, and you wandered on campus, and something happened. Would you share that with us? And would you share with us just how much? Well, share that with us, and let that take you wherever it goes, and then we'll say goodnight.
So I went strolling on my old college campus, and it was a very reflective experience altogether. I walked. Well, some people who are watching will know the layout of this of this college.
NCU.
Others will not, NCU. But I walked along a really long path that first took me past the men's dorm.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of the first things that I saw there was a little mural. And it immediately made me think of Sean. It wasn't his.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it was his or not, but it made me think of Sean. And it made me think of just our experiences there being at the same time as college students. Of course, he was way ahead of me. Then he was an instructor. So definitely out of not in the same level at all. But it made me think of him. And then I kept kind of strolling along.
You passed the seat of the scornful.
Past the seat of the scornful. Yes, ma'am. you can't go on a tour of NCU without the seat of the scornful, which is a place that literally is what it sounds like. People would sit there and be scornful of others. Yes, don't judge us. We were young. But I kept going, and I went to the cafeteria first. I didn't have a reason for going to the cafeteria in particular. I was just like, oh man, Sorensen Hall. This is where we used to eat. And I went in there, and on the back wall of the cafeteria was a mural it painted the whole back wall, but the back wall also had a mirror embedded into it. So it was all around it. And I'm looking at it, and in the bottom right, I see Sean G. And I'm like, you know when something just hits you? I swear it felt just like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God, that's Sean's painting. And the cafeteria people were in there. It was sectioned off because they were doing some kind of repairs. And I asked the lady who was there, I was like, is there any way I can go back there and take a picture of it? And at first she was like, we're not really letting anybody back there. And I'm like, ma'am, my brother painted that mural. Is there any way you can let me back there to see it? So she went and asked her supervisor. She came back and said, yes, that was fine. And it's hard to describe that. It was jarring, but also really happy that I could see this many years later, because this was early this year, that I could see something of my brother's that was not new to me, but new in that moment. Because there's a part of me that knew it was there, but just didn't remember and didn't expect to see it after so many years.
Here's what I hear you saying. You try to hang on to everything
absolutely
that you can.
Absolutely.
And Terrence says his legacy lives on. We don't want your legacy to live on. We want you to live on. And Kamala would exchange seeing that mural for her brother 1,000,000 times. We're left with legacy. We're left with paintings. We're left with a ring that Kamala has on her keychain. But that's not what we want. We want you. Your family wants you. Yes, they might take you for granted. Yes, as Kamala said, it might be a long time. It might be but you're valuable. You're important. You're needed. Have a good night. Yes. Hey, for those of you who are still on, we didn't do the winner. So we see that there's some people that are still on. So let's
Stay tuned.
Let's do the winner real quick. And let's do the winner real quick.
All right, watch your screens, guys. We are about to have our drum roll. Yes, we're about to find out. Rosabelle Martin.
All right, Sister Martin, we're going to send you this book. It's called A Journey Through Spiritual Warfare. A Journey Through Spiritual Warfare. Sister Martin, in order for you to get your book, would you please head over to kwministries.net and would you please go to claim your prize? Claim your prize. And your comment in the comment section, just put spiritual warfare. Just put spiritual warfare. You won tonight. You won something tonight. All right. So let's go head over to kwministries.net, fill out the claim your prize with the information, and we will get your book off to you. All right. So let's try this again. Thank you for being here tonight.
Night, everyone.